Welcome back to the Chasing Tone podcast. I'm Brian, back again with Blake Weiland today. And today we talk about some NAMM highlights from last week. NAMM's a big musical convention thing with all kinds of music merchants. We talk about, to take a drastic right turn, and talk about helping high school and college students figure out what to do with their lives in this day and age. I know it seems like a departure. We bring it back on topic and relate that to music. And then we have a discussion on whether battery types make pedals sound different. So let's jump right in that.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Blake. It's great seeing you at NAMM.
Oh, well, thanks. I didn't actually see you, but I know you saw me.
I did see you. You were shorter and wider than I remembered last time.
Yeah, it's like I didn't have shins. It was very, very weird. A weird thing. I also felt like I was thinner, though.
You were quite a bit thinner, and you know what? You're a little more two-dimensional than I remember. You know, I mean, just your depth. You weren't a very deep person.
I know. I'm pretty. That version of me was not real interesting. Didn't have a lot to say. Not a lot to say.
So a fan. What's his name again? Jonathan.
Jonathan Diaz.
Diaz, yes.
He's a fan of all of the Guitar Gear podcasts. Actually, he's active in the groups, and he's a super cool guy.
Very nice guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Him and Chris Carter was with. That's who I was talking to. Him and Chris Carter, who listens to both of our podcasts as well, and he's probably in your group. Yeah, I know he's in your group too. So basically, we were at NAMM last week, and I was at NAMM. You were there, kind of. And
I was there by proxy.
Yeah, so let me explain. So Jonathan, since Blake couldn't be at NAMM, Jonathan had somehow managed to make a life-size cardboard cutout of Blake walking around NAMM, and he took pictures with everybody, and keep in mind, like this in photos, it looks like Blake.
It kind of does. One guy on Instagram said, "Why does that guy have the same expression in every photo?"
Right. Right. So what you have is a cardboard cutout of Blake, like visiting all these booths, and then pictures of Blake at these booths, all across the Tone Mob Instagram page, right? I assume it's in the Facebook group too,
and in a Facebook group, and in a few various other places. As a matter of fact, Cardboard Blake actually has his own Facebook page.
Oh,
now.
Really?
Yeah. It's not me, though.
Someone else started a group.
Yeah. So, so Cardboard Blake will comment on people's stuff once in a while, and it's kind of funny. But there actually is more to the story. It's as funny as it was. This was all Jonathan's idea, by the way. I can't really take credit for any of this.
And it was genius. It was genius.
Yeah, other than saying yes, and like trying to find a picture of me. But the concept was, so a couple weeks ago, Joshua Spataro from Righteous Sound Pickups on my podcast, and we discussed a lot of things, but a big part of it was after we got talking about his business, we talked about his daughter, and she used to have a rare form of cancer, and she's a cancer survivor. She's just a very young girl, and they started her and her mom started a foundation that basically they go around and they give kids who are going through cancer treatment, they give them like a whole bunch of presents that they would be into just to kind of help, brighten their day through the process. And so basically the whole concept was like, yeah, we need to do a rush job in order to get this stupid cutout made. But anything we get, above or below. So like if it didn't get funded and it kind of fell flat, no pun intended, we were just going to give the money to their foundation. And then since it did get funded, we went anything over and above that, we're just going to give it to them as well.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was a dumb idea, but it was a genius idea, but it was a silly idea. But
it actually created some good in the world.
Exactly. And so we were able to raise a little bit of money for him, and I'm thinking I'm going to do something probably a little bit later this week to try to. I haven't decided exactly what yet, but like I'll probably like raffle off some pedals or something. Like I haven't quite figured it out yet, but
wow, that's cool.
And I just want to get it to that, try to reach that goal we had and figure out a way to.
Yeah, I want to check out that foundation too. I'd like to do something along those lines.
Yeah, it's the Live Love Foundation is what it's called. I think the URL is welivelove.org. So for anybody who wants to check that out, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. So
Or at least, I mean, and a great. I'm having trouble putting words together today. And a great foundation that does some good stuff.
Yeah, they really do, and
sport.
so and and it makes sense. It's a guy from the gear community's family, so
Wow.
we might as well all get together for a good cause once in a while.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yep. So as far as NAMM goes, let's see. I did play the little Walter Jam again, which is always fun. It's always it's I think there's like 40 people that ended up doing this jam. Everyone does like 2 songs or something, right?
right.
So like usually there's like Vince Gill there. Vince couldn't be there because he's out with it. It's some band called the Eagles. I haven't heard of those guys myself, but I guess they're like some big band or something.
I think they mostly just play in hotels in California.
I guess. I mean, I don't. Someone said he was taking it easy. I don't know. But anyways, Brent Mason was there. I played with Ira Dean, which is he was like a founding member of a band called Trick Pony, which was a big country band in 2000s ish. And now, I mean, he still does stuff. He's a big songwriter and.
You
does
played
a
with
bunch of
him
stuff.
last year, right?
Played with him last year, yep. So played with him again, which is always fun. He's a crazy individual in a good way. Very, very nice guy. And let's see. And, played with a guy named Clay Singletary. And it's a funny story about Clay. I was going to play with Clay last year. Stuff got moved. And he kept telling me that he was going to do a Cyndi Lauper song. And keep in mind, we're in Nashville. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean a Cyndi Lauper song? He kept this joke going that, we're going to do Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And I'm like, I'm not playing that, Clay. Like, that's not in my wheelhouse at all, man.
And he says, yes, you are.
So he brought the schedules ended up getting moved, so I ended up playing with Ira last year. But, so anyways, this year at NAMM, he brought me a pink shirt with a big picture of Cyndi Lauper on the front of it.
That's awesome.
So I'm totally wearing that in a YouTube video coming up.
That's fantastic.
Then I said, like every night, there's, of course, we're downtown on like Broadway, which it's just a bunch of bars and a bunch of bands, right? Mm-hmm. So I would just go sit in with a friend of mine or find someone to sit in with. And just hang out for a little bit. And one of my friends is, everybody calls him Elmo. His name's John Sotella, but he goes by Elmo. Mm-hmm. And so we're playing this gig. He gets me up there, and I'm thinking it's just going to be a song or two, right? About 10 songs later, I'm like,
boy.
Where did he go? I look at him, and he's sitting at the bar drinking beer.
and
I'm
you're
like,
up there by yourself?
And I'm up there, like, playing a set. I'm like, whoa. Like, you're getting paid for this. I'm supposed to be sitting where you are, doing what you're doing. And
Wait,
you're...
So did you split the paycheck that night?
No, I just kind of made a joke of it. And, I mean, you can't complain. It's like getting to play guitar, in front of a bunch of tourists.
They're all probably like, "Who's this guy? I came to see Elmo."
Exactly. So no, it was fun. And then other than that, let's see. I did meet a cool person, not like famous artist or anything, but I met someone who works with college students, helping them figure out what they want to do for a living as a professor. And so I had a really great conversation with him, and I think I'm going to be going up to their school and talking with some of their students. So that was fun. Totally outside
really
of the
cool.
gear community. Well, not kind of. I mean, he kind of works with music too. He's a guitar player. But I mean, that's a secondary passion of mine, is helping younger people kind of find their path You know what I mean? Whatever that means. Sometimes that's college, sometimes it's not. And so that was a cool meeting.
That's really interesting. That's an interesting. I mean, maybe that's not his only thing he does, but it seems like an interesting field for a college professor to be in.
Yeah, well, it's part of the college curriculum, I guess, or not the curriculum, but one of the services the college provides. So
I almost think that would be better served. I'm just spitballing here, but I almost think that would be better served to high school kids, because some of those kids in college might be in there and they figure out that they don't want to be in college.
Yep, very true.
And it's like, well, I already paid a bunch of money, so.
Well, it's funny is like he and I were talking. It was actually backstage at the Little Walter Jam. Mm-hmm. And so I was just talking to him, and me, like I'm spouting off, not spouting off, but I'm like, once I start talking about that, I get a little more aggressive. Not in the like I'm not yelling at him, but
you punch people right in the face.
No, I'm very passionate about that. So I'm talking to him about this for like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you reach out to me sometime. He gave me his card, and I see it, and I'm like, dude, you're a professor. Here I am talking crap, and you actually are doing this.
Yeah, your hair's been like, I don't like college. Get out of here with you college professors and all your nonsense. Well,
and part of it was kind of like that, because I strongly feel that not everyone should go to college. It's not like, well, I'm getting way off a path. I'm doing it again.
It's okay. Go on it. I would like to talk about this.
Because the education. Let's talk about in America how the education system is completely messed up, anyways, right? So you have all these teachers teaching people in a way that's more suitable for 1930 to all do the exact same thing, think the exact same thing, memorize the exact same thing, even though everyone has completely different talents and we live in a totally different world that has nothing to do with the way it used to be. So at one time, we have a limited amount of high-end jobs that people would have to go to college to get. Now we're sending everybody through those colleges to try to get those high-end jobs, and then we're wondering why people with 4-year degrees are left, having to work for minimum wage jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
we're 6 figures in debt.
Right, $100,000 in debt or more. That's on the low side, and trying to pay off this gigantic loan that you can't even declare bankruptcy on. And it's completely stupid. So, and especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think there's some value in some college, but to get a master's of business so you can start a business is just downright stupid, completely idiotic. Anyways, I'm doing it again. I'm
doing it again. I'm doing it again. But no, I feel the same way. I mean, I see there is definitely value in college. There's definitely a value in furthering your education. But you got to, I think, and you may not know what you want. That's the problem. There's no reason to go sink a whole bunch of money into this and then go, well, I don't even like accounting.
Right.
Or whatever. I'm not even interested in being a lawyer anymore. Like, it's like, ugh.
Now that I'm into it, I hate this. Yeah.
Yes. That's a classic story. A lot of people run into that, and I don't think it's worth. There's other ways to figure out if you like something or not before you just dive headlong into it. Now, I think, if you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, obviously you got to go through a lot of school.
Right.
If that's what you want to do.
And I think way too many parents push their kids to go to college rather than helping those kids figure out what in the world they want to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's college is not the be-all, end-all answer for everything. It's just not, I mean, okay. If you want to be a musician, which I wouldn't recommend because there's not much money in it, but let's just say you do, do you have to go to Belmont University? No. I mean, it won't hurt, but it's not absolutely necessary. I mean, there's a lot of people who travel around the country, travel around the world, playing gigs, and that's just what they do. They just travel around the world playing music, and they may not be rich. You may not ever hear about them, but they make a decent enough living to keep doing it.
Totally.
And for some people, that totally works. And is college necessary for that? No. And I mean, there's just a million different things that a person could do, you know? I mean, especially in this day and age and with content, we're going back into the marketing segment of the podcast. But
my favorite.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a million things that people can do that I don't think schools teach young people how to think along those lines. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because they don't. They want you to memorize, you know, the capitals of all 50 states.
Right.
Which, you know what? I don't know the capitals of all 50 states. I used to in 6th grade, but now I don't need to know that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm not a geography teacher.
Right.
I don't need to know these things. I think it's valuable if you do know it and you have an interest in knowing the name of every country in the world.
Yeah.
If you want to.
That's
the other thing.
That's a great
if you
party
just
trick.
want to, it's great. But don't go at it because you have to.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and the idea of going to college to find oneself, there's a lot of other ways that I think are better and financially cheaper to find oneself. You know, I mean, you know, taking a trip overseas and staying with some people in Germany or England or whatever and seeing some other cultures is a great way to find yourself, you know?
Totally.
So anyways,
guitar gear.
Yeah, I told you, don't get me started on this. I will turn into a raging maniac.
But I do think, I mean, okay, just one more thing and we'll be done.
No,
I do think it's important to get this out there because for so long, it's been beat into everyone's head the only way to be successful is to go this route.
Yes.
I think. And also everyone's vision of what successful is actually different.
Yes.
If you're happy and you are doing what you like to do and you are making like not much money but you're happy, that's successful.
Right.
Like you don't being rich does not make you successful in my mind. Like being content or at least maybe at least excited or just enjoying things and not being miserable, that's success to me. And it's different for everybody, but like it has nothing to do with money in my mind.
No, you're exactly right. I think our culture kind of insinuates that success is kind of means having an abundance of money or wealth, disposable income of some sort. And there's a lot of really miserable rich people, you know, and there's a lot of very happy people who struggle, to pay the bills. And, so in both, then there's opposites too. There's some very wealthy people that are very happy. And there's some people that struggle to pay the bills that are extremely miserable. So I don't know. I mean, in this day and age, like when I've hired people, I don't ask if they have a degree. No, I don't care. All I want to know is, do you know how to do X, Y, and Z? Awesome. That's all I care about. I don't care if you watched YouTube videos to learn that and you sat at home for 3 years figuring out how to program DSP. I don't care. That's cool. Let's do it. You know, that engineering degree means absolutely nothing to me. It really does.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's kind of funny on another note. Like, they've joked about it, but I honestly think it's true. I think it's on, it was on Adam Carolla's show a couple years ago, his podcast. He was joking around like, all you need to do, like, you don't need to go to, he's like, if you want to convince somebody, if you're trying to get a job, right? And this is, a general job. This isn't like a technical job.
Right.
But you're trying to get a job in, say, marketing or business or something that just is very vague in general. And you want people to think you have a degree. You just find out like the name of a couple professors that worked there at the time that you would have been there, and like the school mascot, and that's all you're gonna need to convince anyone that you went there. And I almost think that that's true because I've had some technical school here and there that I've cited for interviews. Never one time did they ask to see the proof of that. Like it was just in my resume.
Right.
It's like, I could have just made that up. I didn't, but I could have.
Well, I tell people that I went to Vaynerversity.
There you go.
And if you follow Blake and I, you probably know what that means and the significance of it.
Right. Anyway, 19 minutes in. Well, you want to talk about some guitar gear? Or we want to go on life and nonsense some more.
Well, there was a thread on the Wampler Tone page that broke Facebook.
Oh,
Almost.
Old
And
Zuck almost had to retool.
Almost, yeah. So apparently someone had posted that they heard a difference in using different batteries, right?
Okay.
And so the stud goes really deep about whether that's accurate, why that may be, and then it gets posted on the DIY Stomp Boxes group, and some people were making very angry, just some very angry, bitter remarks. You know,
Like people
in regards
really got worked up about batteries.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm like, look, like if Joe Smith or whatever wants to buy some different batteries and he's finding contentment and enjoyment in that, why do you care? Like, why? Yeah. Just like let him do his thing. If you don't believe it, cool. But it's
congratulations.
Like, yeah, like it's not like there's really no need to be a jerk about it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to put this other person down for their views. You know, like you don't believe it. Cool. He does, and he's
like, you've never made fun of me for being a flat earther.
You're a flat earther?
No, I'm not a flat earther.
Oh, okay.
Making a joke.
I was like, wow, that's this, and the conversation takes a strange turn.
I should have tried to roll with that. That would have been really funny. I would if I would have actually known any of their theories, but I just was trying to think of something silly. No, I'm not a flat earther. But.
Well, mister, we could go one of two ways. We could go science or biblical.
I want to go. I just want to grab that soundbite of you going, "You're a flat earther," and just have it so I can just drop it at random points in the episode for no reason.
I'm picturing Joshua Frazier and the graphic that he makes regarding that.
Yeah, you're a flat earther.
Joshua Frazier being one of our friends, and I think he's in your group, right? He may be in the Wampler group as well on Facebook.
He's in all groups, all gear podcast groups. He's in them.
So anyways, where was I going with that? So yeah, so we're talking about how, you know, there were some people that said, well, whenever I use overdrives and I use different types of batteries, this brand sounds a little smoother versus that brand, or especially with fuzzes, you know, this type works better than this type. And of course, like we all know that voltages make things play differently, right?
Of course.
So I don't know. I mean, you know, there may be a degree of difference, but at the end of the day, like myself, because several people are asking, like, well, where do you stand on it? I'm like, I think you're going to find a much bigger difference in changing, you know, types of potentiometers, or, you know, like measuring values of all the parts and making sure it's consistent, way more than you're going to find in changing batteries, given that they're exactly the same, so they're exactly at 9.6 volts or whatever, right? Exactly. Right. Because literally some of those differences in batteries are that they're different voltages. I think someone posted that they had found some batteries before that actually measured like 10 or 10.5 volts or something, you know, which is
that's
and it's true. I mean, like the batteries are all over the place in terms of what they measure. Let alone types of batteries. Yeah, they are going to respond a little bit differently, but I don't know. Like at that point, it goes back to my Melbay versus eBay thing. You know, at that point, like there's a point where I stop obsessing over it and I just want to play some music, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's once we get to like batteries and stuff, that's kind of where I'm like, I just want to play some music.
Yeah, the batteries, my thought on it, and I'm far from a technical expert on this, but I do understand batteries a little bit. The only benefit I can see to them is like they're I don't know, maybe for convenience. I just think that the difference between various batteries, if you enjoy playing around with it and you want to experiment, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure you will hear some differences, probably mostly because of voltages, especially in fuzzes. But like to me, it's I'm with you. It's just not a big enough difference that I'm gonna care. I'd rather just plug into a one spot and call it a day.
Right. But at the end of the day, like if you take a fuzz face and you stick like a battery that's measuring 7 or 8 volts, I mean, it's going to sound radically different than a brand new battery at 10. And a lot of that's, so I kind of put it out in a layman-esque way. Like an op-amp based thing, it kind of wants to keep things steady and make
as steady as it can. Right?
Yeah.
They're constantly trying to have a consistent output.
Right. Whereas transistors, like, that's the wrong power supply, which can sound pretty good in a fuzz, depending on the type of fuzz and depending on the type of transistors and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I mean, like they do react totally different in that way. And that's why on some power supplies, you see like a starve feature where you can start, shedding off some power. And
or on some fuzz pedals have that built in, so you can just run run your Voodoo Labs in the in there at a full 9 volts, and then the pedal itself will have a starve knob that you can simulate that kind of experience. So.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a simulation. It's not exactly the same as a battery, but close enough to call good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, so that kind of was a big thing this week in the groups. Anyways, I don't know if your group caught any of that, but
no, I don't think so. We were dealing with some jerks in our group this week, or a jerk rather.
It's been that way for us for a few weeks. We've had some people that joined the groups purely to troll.
Well, that wasn't this really. This guy's been around, but he had some. Well, we kind of said we weren't going to talk about it, but whoa, that's going crazy. Something just fell off the shelf. Anyway, he, as a lot of people probably know, Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, he committed suicide this week, and it was pretty impactful to, I would say, most of like probably guys around my age, like early 30s and under. Probably a little more impacted than maybe some of the little bit older people, just because like I remember like sitting in the car and hearing a Linkin Park song for the first time and thinking, and at this point all I'd really been listening to was 90s country and stuff with my parents, and I was just sitting in the car waiting for my mom, and Linkin Park came on and I was like, what is this? And it kind of like got me into heavy music. And so it was a real big turning point. So and all my friends liked it, and it was a huge deal for us. When I was like, that album came out when I was like 11 or 12. So it was
wow.
Yeah, it was Hybrid Theory came out in 2000, I think. And that it's just kind of crazy to think it was that long ago, but it was a big deal to me back then. And so and I hadn't kept up with that band. They're not my favorite style of music or whatever, but it was like, whoa. Like that was a big like, whoa, this was like a guy from my childhood kind of.
Right.
And so that was pretty sad for a lot of people. And this guy basically came in and said, hey, I suffer from depression and this guy's just a sissy. And it's like, whoa, really?
It's we had some people being insensitive to it as well. And there's a line that you got to draw. Like, okay, I respect your opinion, but there's better ways to say it. Mm-hmm. And we had some problems with that, where guys like, you're trying to, you're trying to, how was it? You're ignoring my right to freedom of speech, and I'm like, this is not how this group works. I am the dictator with the band hammer, and if you're a jerk, you're out. Like that's just how it works. I'm sorry.
You can speak. You have freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, but not in my house.
Right.
That's just I don't know. whether or not you liked anybody's music or anybody's output, at the end of the day, that's a human. And he had 6 kids, and obviously was going through some pretty terrible things in his head. And I think I don't know. You don't know unless you're in that position, and I hate to see people kind of disregard somebody's life so quickly.
Right.
That's just doesn't speak well of them as a person in my mind. A life is a important thing. You know, people are important. So
Yes.
Anyway,
most people, anyways.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Not me. I'm not important, but there are some important people. No.
All right.
Anyway, so that was
Debbie Downer coming at you.
Yeah, we were like, we're not going to talk about that. Well, I guess we did. So,
okay. Well, let's close it out with a happy thought. Okay. So, if you're listening to the podcast right now, you might want to go to the Wampler page if you're into this sort of thing, and look back a few days, because last night I did a Facebook Live after I got at like 1 a.m. after I got done shooting videos.
Right.
And someone was asked, they're wanting to make like my wife calls it the man cave, but it's just like in my barn, I have where I film videos, where I do the breadboarding, where I store all my pedals, and then like an isolated room. So it's kind of like a little studio type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so someone was building something similar. So they're asking, like what, how to build it and that sort of thing. So I said, well, let me show you what I did, and then you can kind of go from there. And so I just did like a kind of a walkthrough of the tone cave, quote unquote,
Right.
So like if you're into that, or if you're even just interested in the chaos that I surround myself with in order to have fun and build stuff and create stuff. Well, mostly create stuff, since I don't build everything myself. Then yeah, you can check that out.
Sweet. Yeah, I seen that thread this morning, and it reminded me that a couple years ago I did a couple blog posts on kind of the process behind building my tone cave / shred shed. And I should finish those, because I think people would get something out of it. I basically tried to make this place as sound isolated as I could afford to, because I mean, as you know, it costs a lot to really
do it like a studio. Yeah, it's incredibly expensive. Yeah.
So I sound quote unquote soundproof, which is a bit of a misnomer, but that's what everybody knows what you're talking about when you say that. I soundproofed it as best I could.
You sound resisted.
I sound resisted, yeah. and so, I mean, I can crank it, I can crank it up at pretty much any hour that I want. And my neighbors are they're pretty close. And it doesn't bother anyone. They would hear it if they were standing in their backyard and like listening. But if they go in their house, they're not hearing it,
Right.
So it's done pretty well. And I did start some blog stuff on that here a couple years ago. I should finish it up. But there are 2 articles on my site that you guys can check out if you want. And it actually kind of gives you the gist, and some other places to get information. But anyway, it's an interesting thing once you go diving into it. You can't just throw rugs on the wall like you think you can.
No, I tried that in high school. That doesn't work very. Actually, it works very well for dampening high end frequencies.
Yes,
but it actually makes the room too dead. It just sounds weird and fake. And
and your mom can still hear your drums.
And your mom can still, like, basically everything from the mid range down. Yeah, is just getting outside. So, so I mean, like, like you said, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go about it, and it's too much for a podcast. But it's not just building a room with, like you said, some carpet on the walls. It's several different things going into it, depending on how much money you want to spend. I mean, there's things that isolate the studs, for example. Like certain types of rubber dampening things that basically all to stop sound from vibrating materials and getting outside of the room, let alone any sort of dampening, which there's a billion ways to do that. It is so complex that, I don't know. I mean, it's just a very complex art.
It is. It's so intense. It's actually I spent I don't even know how many hours I spent, or not hours, probably accumulation of like weeks, just researching to try to even figure out what I could do with my budget, basically. And it worked out really well. There's some things I didn't do, that I should not have done that I did. But I didn't really. Mine kind of started out weird. I didn't start it with the idea that I was going to have it sound isolated. I had the idea it was just going to be basically a living space just to go hang out in and maybe play guitar once in a while. But then I got to thinking and I was like, whoa, we should really. I thought we were going to be jamming out here with the band on a regular basis. And so I was like, well, I better make this thing dead. And, well, anyway, that's a long story. We won't get into that right now. But that might make it for a good episode.
That's next week's episode.
Yeah, we could talk about some basics. So.
Yeah. All right. So, all right, with that, that's a good place to end this week's episode.
All right. Sounds good to me.
All right.
Later, Brian.
Later. So thank you so much for listening to the Chasing Tone podcast. I appreciate it. If you'd like to leave a review, which actually helps us, it is appreciated very much. You can go to iTunes and just leave a review there. And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email me at podcast@wamplerpedals.com. You can email Blake at info@tonemob.com. And, if you're on Facebook and Instagram, make sure you check us out there. Facebook, we have a big group called the Wampler Tone Group. Blake has the Tone Mob group. We're just a bunch of guys who love gear, get together and talk about all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. If you got some time to kill, it's great for sitting in the line and like want to go through your phone and find something to do while you're sitting in line at Starbucks or whatever. So anyways, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.